Perspectives, WSSB 90.3 FM. I'm very pleased to bring back previous guests who had been here during my inauguration or during my original days. And I can tell you I hope I've gotten a little better, not only as an interviewer, but the last time that my guest was here, I think that a pound of sweat was coming off of me. I guess I was nervous, besides the fact that she's a very attractive and intelligent person. I needed to get that out of the way just to reassure myself that I can make it through this particular interview without any problems. Again, this is New Perspectives. The subject that we're going to talk about tonight is one that is of paramount importance, if not the most important subject in our society. Every aspect of what we do as a civilization is highly dependent upon our growth and development intellectually. And of course, that all begins in the school environment. My guest this evening and her colleague are here. I have the pleasure of introducing to our listening audience this evening the Superintendent of Consolidated School District Number 5, Ms. Cynthia Wilson. Welcome to New Perspectives.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
I also have Dr. Berry-Quinn, who is the Deputy Superintendent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they're both here. We're going to have a little talk about education in Consolidated School District 5. I mentioned before we came on the air, I had mentioned that we had a wonderful session this year here at New Perspectives. We talked about education quite a bit. And we also had a school candidates debate where those individuals who were running for the school board were here, and it was the most listened to program that we had. So clearly it shows us that people are definitely listening, number one. Number two, they're listening to those issues that are most relevant, and of course it's education. So without going back into what you said you were going to do, you gave us a big list of information just after you had gotten hired and came here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try to go down that list, and we're going to start with the report card. Now, the state has a report card that they provide to tell us exactly what's going on in the school system. They monitor you, your performance, and what goes on. Tell us about that report. Tell us about how you feel about the report for your school district.
This year, the Orangeburg Consolidated School District 5 received a report card, as it does every year, that tells us how we're doing academically with our students. We were fortunate enough this year to receive an excellent report card. Actually, it was the best report that the school district has received in the last 10 years. I'd like to congratulate all the teachers, the students, the parents, the community at large for rallying together behind what needed to be done for boys and girls and ensuring that success was achieved in the classroom. So I'd like to thank everyone for their efforts, because it does pay off, and we can see a glimmer of hope in what our kids are able to do. We received a good report that is the absolute rating, and then an excellent report in terms of progress. So they see that we are moving forward, and it's really due to a lot of things that our teachers have done in the classrooms to enhance the learning opportunities for boys and girls.
Can you give us any specifics, any of good examples of what it was that allows you to get where we are right now in terms of the report?
Well, one of the things we had to do was look at where we were currently. And so in order for us to know where we're trying to go, we have to look at where we're starting. So to look at data and to have principals to take a look at the data to see where each individual school is or was, where each individual grade level was, where each individual teacher was. And then we set goals for where we want it to be. So to know we're starting here, but by the end of the school year, we want to make sure that we moved from our current location, our current place, to look at how we're going to measure our effectiveness.
So, Dr. Quinn, what you're saying is, while the state was monitoring what you all were to do, you all had to, of course, then monitor what the state, what you all were doing in the schools.
Right, and then we had to look at what the state was requiring us to do.
Okay.
So we had to look at the curriculum, and for starting place, we had to ask the question: what is it specifically that our students are supposed to know, understand, and be able to do? And so we provided some clarity to teachers and to principals and even to parents. in 3rd grade, your students should know this. In 4th grade, so on to 12th grade. So here's where we are, but here's what the state is requiring us to do.
Sure.
So how are we going to measure our progress towards moving forward?
Interesting question. As someone who's worked in the public school system, both here in New York and in the Atlanta public school system, the regiment that students are now required to, or the load that teachers are required to give students, do you think that's a bit much?
I don't think it's a bit much. What I do believe is that if you provide a person with direction for where they're going to go and where they need to end up, if you give them resources and training for how they need to get there and accomplish those goals that you've set, if you provide them support along the way and give them feedback on how they're doing, I think you set the bar high, you train the people, you put the challenge out there, and then you say, I know you can do it. My expectations are high, but I believe you can. And then you look and guess what? At the end, you get a report card rating like we did.
Yes, understood. You know, and I totally agree with you in that regard when we talk about setting the bar high and the standards. If you measure your success by your own personal sense of what you believe it to be, that's exactly what it will be. But if you set a goal or a standard higher than yourself, in other words, if a young person wakes up every morning and says, I want to become the President of the United States, that is an admirable goal to set. I would think that education or a school system would do exactly the same thing.
Right, and we don't get to set our own standards or our own curriculum. Yeah. The state provides that for us. And so we can look around and say, I may be better than this district or I may be better than this district. But when the goal is that we leave no child behind, then we have to use the data that we have at hand and also kind of test the waters along the way. So we gave benchmarks along the way to see if I want at minimum 80% of my students to pass this exam. And that's just average. If I want at minimum 80% to pass, then what am I going to do if I'm staring at data that tells me currently I have 40% of my students passing? So then each month I may have to give assessments to see what my students are learning and how effective I'm being as a classroom teacher to get them to understand the material that the state requires us to learn.
And so basically my understanding based on what you said is that we are in a situation that in order for society to be productive and to increase and to move forward, the level of learning has to be a little more stringent.
Yes.
In order for us to compete globally.
Yes.
And this is where Mrs. Wilson comes back often and says we're trying to build a global school market.
Right.
Exactly.
And we have a
world-class system.
World-class system.
We have to be cognizant of the fact that this is a culture when everyone is looking at numbers. Someone can say to me, well, I don't believe in test scores and I don't think we should test students and I don't think that's the only measure. Well, I don't think it's the only measure either. That's why we have the arts. That's why we have athletics. That's why we have other programs available for students because it helps round out the entire child. Right. But the numbers also count. They are important. It's important to say, this is where you are. This is what this instrument is telling me your knowledge base consists of. Yeah. So I know that these are the things that you are capable of doing, what you understand, and you're able to apply in the real world. Just like if you go to the bank and you say to the banker, well, I think I'm worth $1 million, but your bank account does not say you have $1 million in the bank.
The numbers don't add up.
The numbers don't add up. So it is very similar to what we're asking or what the state tells us we must do. You must have this number, and if you don't have the number, then we will give you a rating that says you are not there.
Now, there are two noteworthy programs that we discussed before we came on. You made mention of them, the Voyager program and another framework that was set in place. Tell us something about that, because I understand those are some of the ways you all were able to achieve to get to the level that you are in terms of the rating.
Right. The Voyager program, originally we brought it in to help those underachieving students. I think the Voyager program, to its credit, has a scripted method for helping teachers to understand what students know and what they don't know. So you start off with a baseline assessment. So you can't know, again, like I said earlier, you can't know how to get where you want to go if you don't know where you currently are. So there's a baseline assessment that was given to every student to see, are you on grade level? Are you not on grade level? If you're not on grade level, of course, you're going to receive the instruction that all of the other students receive in the classroom. But then we're going to pull you aside and give you just-in-time interventions on specific skills that you do not have. And once so Voyager is not a life sentence. Step out of the classroom.
It's to help to improve.
Learn what you don't know, and let's put you back in the regular setting. It not only levels the playing field for children, but also for teachers. Some teachers are very skilled in helping students on their own, and they have lots of resources. Then we have other teachers that ask the question, well, Johnny's not reading where he should be reading. What is it that I can do for him? So Voyager has, in bold letters, say this, do this, pull this resource, help this child. So, and then there are assessments along the way to measure the growth of that child. So just what we're trying to do as a district to meet those state requirements, when we see that students don't have those necessary prerequisite skills, that's how Voyager helps.
Now, Voyager came from another school system. It was being
It's used nationally.
Nationally.
Yes, it's a national system. It's used all over the country.
Okay.
It's a research-based program.
Sure.
It has best practices.
Sure.
I think, we often say there are lots of programs that work. You just have to decide which program you want to, that fits your needs.
Sure.
And use it with fidelity as well.
Fidelity.
Stick to it.
Yeah.
Stick to it. And
Right.
so if you buy a program this year and at the end of the year you say, oh, this isn't working, and then, and the next year you buy a different program, you'll never have anything that's going to work for your students or for your teachers. Teachers are constantly learning something new,
Sure.
something different.
Sure.
And the other thing that's important about having a program that is used across the system is that you don't have that variability from one classroom to the next classroom to the next classroom. So Mrs. Jones is a great teacher because Mrs. Jones has been teaching for 20 years and she's collected all these materials that she's able to use and use with kids. She knows how to identify her kids. She knows how to improve the kids who are struggling. She can do it. But Miss Smith just began teaching 2 years ago, and her bag of tricks is not as big or as full as the bag of tricks that Miss Jones has.
Sure.
So when you have a program that is used across the system, you don't have that risk of saying, we hope that Mrs. Smith's class will perform as well as Mrs. Jones' class. You have this sense that at a minimum, Miss Smith is doing this, and that. That's good for kids. And
should a student move from one school to another, you can check the level that they were on their previous campus, and then the current teacher or the new teacher can say, where were you when you left off? Here, your records say this. We can pick it right back up because the program is so consistent.
Yeah, and I'm impressed with that idea because, as we said, again, prior to coming on, I talked about being a broadcaster. And I'm not a broadcaster. I'm just an individual who believes in trying to get a message out and using the airwaves in order by which to do it. I'm going back to school. I'm going back to school so that I can become a better broadcaster. I want to upgrade my skills in being able to communicate and get information out to people and with less mistakes. So I definitely applaud. We all need some level of instruction continually if we are to improve, particularly if we care about the product that we're trying to deliver. In your case, that product are children that will eventually go out into the world and become productive. And the more information that they're able to acquire and the source of the information they're able to acquire, the better off they will be. So,
one of the things that I firmly believe is that people wake up every morning wanting to do a good job. I don't think anyone wakes up and says, I want to go out here and not do a good job. I just want the day to end and I just want to go home. I think people really want to do a good job, particularly when they work with children. It's very important to come with your best self and be prepared. And I think one of the things that you alluded to just in the last few minutes is that people need additional support and help to become their best selves.
right.
And I think that that's part of the training and that goes into helping teachers learn new skills that then they're better able to address the things that children need to know and learn.
I don't want to disagree with you.